Hey guys, what's up? And welcome to another episode of the Goodcast Show. First and foremost, thank you guys for all your support and viewership for the past week and all your comments and all your suggestions. Please keep them coming. We can only get better with your suggestions. So if you guys have any thoughts on how we can better the interviews, how guests you want to see on the podcast, please let me know. Comment in the comment sections of all of our videos and I'll love to attend to them. Now, today, I have a very special guest who's came all the way from Penang, not to come on the podcast, but to handle his own business, obviously. But he's here from Penang and he's written a new book called Education of Ethnic Minorities. This book takes basically the case of Indians in Malaysia and looks at the idea, particularly of vernacular education from the time post-independence till today. It is a book that is devoid of any emotion. It is factual in nature. It's a PhD study, and it also reveals a lot of things that I did not know. And it also talks about the issue at a very ground level. So it has all the details and a lot of revelations that I think, should consider. Now, the topic of vernacular schools over the years has always been approached from an emotional stance and never really from the factual. We have contrasting opinions on the matter, some calling for the abolishment of vernacular schools, some asking for it to be preserved, to preserve the Indian, particularly the Tamil language. But this book cuts both right between that and really focuses on the issues that are facing the students, the issues that these vernacular education is facing today, and as also touches on its place in terms of Malaysia's social cohesion. It's a fantastic book. It's available at Gerak Budaya, by the way, who are sponsors of this episode. So if you guys would like to get the book, we'll be sharing the links in the description. Please welcome today. He's a former Dean of Communications at Wawasan Open University. He's an author. He's a very historically tuned man. Please welcome Dr. Santhiram Raman. Hello, Doctor. How are you? And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Vinod, for having me.
So, Doctor, this book is truly amazing in terms of the way you have approached this topic. It's very factual. It's based on your research. You have actually taken a group of students and schools and focused on it. But I just want to go to the beginning of the book. Did we miss the boat towards social cohesion, meaningful social integration in Malaysia when we supported or we pandered to the people's wanting of vernacular education?
I think that's a very pertinent question to ask. But first, this book itself is a PhD work, and this is the second edition.
Yes, the second edition.
It came out as a first book in 1999. And I spent some years ruminating on it and saying, what else can I do? And at the end of it, I said, let's go on to have a second edition. And I've included a chapter there which reviews our present status as well.
Yes.
So you get an entire picture of the position of Indian Tamil education in Malaysia.
And also just to mention, at the end, you also give your own suggestions.
I gave a lot of suggestions and say, these are recommendations which I've made. Even in the earlier thesis, I've made those recommendations. I've refined those recommendations and brought something else now. So if your question is, did we miss the boat? No, but at the time of independence, there was such euphoria of independence. We were one of the few countries where independence was got without a real struggle, except that we had our own internal fights against communists.
Yes.
So when independence came, we all got together and said, yeah, let's do this. But when you look at the status of education in Malaya at that time, in Malaya before 1957, you would notice that there were already vernacular schools in existence.
Yes, in the estates.
There were Chinese schools, there were Tamil schools, there were a few Malay schools, and a few English schools. All these were existing. So we had to hit a compromise because at that time we were interested in national unity and integration. That was our main purpose. We knew that there was this multiracial group here. How do we unite them? So the path that the founding fathers at that time took was, okay, why don't we say vernacular education goes on in the primary, and in the secondary, why don't we dovetail it into Malay education and move forward? That was the whole idea. But even in the vernacular, they said, in order to create a united national identity, all our subjects or things that are going to be taught will be Malayanized. That is the most. So the content was Malaysian, but the medium was Chinese, Mandarin, Tamil, or Malay and English at that time. So that is how the arrangement was. We didn't miss about the whole idea. Was very, very useful at that time because a lot of Chinese had set up their own. The Chinese had completely set up their own primary schools.
Yeah.
If you look at the number of Chinese schools that are present even now, we have about primary schools in Malaysia. We have about 1,298 schools or so. Tamil schools now we have about 524, and now the Scholar Kabangsar has grown exponentially because they were had to be the bedrock of our independent nation. So we have about close to 5,000 over 5,700 over Malay primary schools. So you see, we started off like that, but what had happened was the switch over to secondary gave us a lot of problems.
So that's a very interesting thing. And did we prioritize preservation of our mother tongue, Tamil and Mandarin or any mother tongue, in the place of creating a youth group, the future, the students who are actually capable and able to participate in our national education system? Because your books, from that I can see that, especially in that first year of Peralihan, doesn't seem to achieve that.
We had taken the steps. The steps were there. Remove class was supposed to give a year's intensive Bahasa preparation for these children from Chinese and Tamil schools to move on to secondary institutions. But the way it went about was not well planned. Because you would notice that a lot of ideas in education or language learning has often said that there are two aspects of language learning. One, you learn a language where you attain basic information. You can communicate with friends. That they call it BICS, basic interpersonal communication skills, where you can communicate with your community. Like you talk about most of the older people going to the market and talking in Bahasa, in broken Bahasa and things like that. But slightly higher, there is one thing called the BISCS, which is you can communicate on expressive things. But the more important thing is the CALP. CALP is communicative, academic, language proficiency. That was lacking in our remove class preparation. Remove class preparation is more interested in language, learning of these things, and most of the children felt, I know all this stuff. But when you talk in terms of learn a mathematics symbol, mathematics and science are different languages. They have different interpretations, different understanding.
Correct.
So you lose 1 year of learning these things. And then when you're put in the secondary school, you're lost again. I can't compete with the national medium children who have had real exposure to Bahasa and they've come up. And we fellows had only 1 or 2 hours, 1 or 2 periods a day. And we are supposed to learn as well in Bahasa in the secondary.
But the thing about Tamil education is that one thing that you mentioned in the book is you use this term cultural citadel, where you basically ask the question that whether or not, why are Tamil schools are the ones who are burdened with the responsibility of preserving culture, preserving language and all that. Not so much language, but culture. Interesting enough, you do a study of parents and pupils in this book with regards to that. Because initially in this book, Tamil schools were looked upon as the way to preserve Tamil language, which is fine. But I always have this counter question is, why is it the school is in charge of this and not the parents, not the private education? Because they are, I mean, is it that if we don't have Tamil schools, Tamil will die? Can that be an assumption?
That is an assumption.
But is it a fair assumption?
That's a very serious assumption. Because in some countries, you would see that because they didn't learn the language properly in some areas, the culture and the society has gone on to a peripheral nature. They weren't in mainstream at all. Because they lost a lot of the identity, the Hindu-Indian identity is lost. You see? But that is the sacrifice we make, I think. when we are in for other foreign lands, if I can use the word.
But other Indian groups from India who have migrated to foreign lands, for example, let's say the ones in the UK, you see a lot of North Indians who have more moved to UK, right? That's why they call the UK the India's second home, right?
Yes.
They speak their language. They have no problem, and generations have lived in the UK, but they speak their mother tongue. So my contention here is that because when I compare the outcomes, is it that we should focus on preserving Tamil in spite of the poor performance, the poor self-esteem levels that you have written in your book that you have researched and found?
Yeah.
Or should we say, okay, let's get real here. The world is no longer the world that existed post-independence. We are now in a global world. We are very certain of our status as Malaysians, and now we have to compete in a area that has multiple nationals. So we have to get our fundamentals right in terms of our proficiency, in terms of our numeracy and all that. Shouldn't that be the focus now?
It has to be. That is the way to move forward, I think. If we are interested in, you see, there are two things we must consider. Do we want our children to have an Indian lifestyle? Meaning learn the language, learn the culture, be a good Indian? Or do you want to prepare children for a life, for a living in this country? Which means integrate with the mainstream people and learn the national language, because the national language is the one that will provide you the movement upwards.
Why can't you have both?
In what sense you say?
That means why can't I be a good Indian? Because I'm a parent as well.
Yeah.
And when it comes to my children, I emphasize going to temples, learning Hindu gods and all these kind of things from a young age. I mean, they are very young now. But why can't they be good Indians, good Hindus, as well as able to compete?
If you learn in a national school, you miss out on all those things of Hinduism. And our society was not prepared, the Indian society outside was not prepared to bear that burden. Whether they can put up their own institutions with temples or in their own families, set up individual companies or whatnot. You get a lot of institutions now giving Indian dancers this and the other.
Correct.
At that point in time, we were unable to do those things. We felt that the school was the only institution that could give them the language instruction that is needed. That is the problem. Whereas you look at the Punjabis, for instance, they have attached schools, Punjabi classes inside with their temple environment. And most of the Punjabis have learned their language through after-school hours in the temple environment.
Are you then saying that the Tamils are the ones to be blamed for the fact that our culture is not preserved properly?
We have to do that. We talk a lot about say, culture, this and the other, but we don't put our money where it should go. We can't raise funds because you must understand that the majority of Indians at that time who came in were landless peasants, and they had endured famines, this and the other in India. Same with the Chinese, and they came here. And we didn't have an entrepreneurial class that went on to do other things and say, look, we are here, you guys come, we'll support you. There wasn't. So they had to search within their circle. And the estate environment itself was a complete captive environment. They provided everything to reflect India. If you look at the origins of these things, you will see the estates had their schools, the workers had their estate lines, which are segregated from the management group that stayed in nice bungalows in the estates.
Correct. We called it line side.
And then had lines. They had their own shops there, sundry shops, and they had their own temples. They had their own toddy shops. Life was complete for them. They didn't want to break out. They could not break out of that environment because it was a captive environment there.
So it was a purposeful segmentation.
It was
segregation
that took place.
But there's one interesting thing that you say in this book where you say that the Tamil education at that time was made to just appease the workers and not promote social mobility. Am I right in saying that?
That's true. But the estates needed a continuous flow of labor force. So the only way they can do is control the education to primary levels and ensure that the children of these estate workers, tappers, will become the tappers. Just like there was a saying in Malay that if you give them more education, they would move out of that environment and keep them there. But also, I think we emphasize too much on this thing, Tamil schools being captive in nature. If you look at the statistics from 1900s to about 1950, the Indian population was not a permanent feature. They were transient. I remember Colonel Singh, Sandhu's book, Indians, Malaysia, Migration, Immigration, and all that he had written, remember, very much earlier, in which he says he has provided statistics that at a 10-year gap, there were Indian migration coming into Malaysia and there was Indians getting out of in equal numbers, for instance. If you look at
going back to India.
Okay, you look at page 50 of this book. I'll give you this. I have given the statistics.
My goodness, the page number as well.
Yeah, I've given the statistics because that's an interesting thing. I said, hey, we always thought Indians were staying back. There were 2.5 million Indians who came in, but now our population is only about 1 point some million. What happened to the rest? Because at that time, there was this movement. If you look at the book, you would notice, So you see, that is the other nature of the Indian population in Malaysia. They didn't treat this as their homes, and the estate management also thought, how this crowd will get back? How do they integrate in India if we gave them something else? If they gave us an English education, we would have gone back and enjoyed ourselves in India and blended with the community English and Tamil and all that, we would have easily done it. But because they thought that this is a transient population that is going back and forth, Tamil would be the best thing for them to reintegrate into Indian society.
I see.
So that was, and then we got so hung up with this Tamil school business because it provided employment for Indians at a middle class level. And the Chinese were by the side having fierce, they attach so much importance to education and there are so many Chinese schools.
That's an interesting revelation that you just made. Insight to your book, because when I was reading your book, I kept on asking myself, why is it that the Chinese were so vocal about vernacular education and all that, and the Indians seem to just follow suit.
Follow them.
Yeah, follow them, not take the sort of lead role.
You look at this migration in and out of Malaysia, it's huge numbers. At
sometimes even more than the numbers
people getting out
than coming in. Yeah.
The 10-year period. You look at the 10-year period there. This something went wrong with this statistics number. And so later I found out there's an error. But you look at the movement. So this is very important for us to understand.
So we were more of a transient race, unlike the Chinese.
Tamil is important for us.
Now, one of the key things that I have realized about Tamil education, in fact, recently I attended an event organized by Mitra called Who Wants to Be a Scientist? And it featured a lot of Tamil schools and how they were supposed to answer these space-related questions and all that kind of. Who wants to be a scientist? Who wants to be a astronaut? Or something. I think it's Who Wants to Be a Scientist?
Yeah.
And they were just brilliant students. Brilliant. Tamil schools actually do very well in terms of even participating in foreign contests, right? They win internationals. They win.
Competitions have won.
Yeah, they won in Hong Kong and all these places, many places, right?
But it is not reported properly.
It is not reported. You're right. So the point I'm getting at is that if we look at your book, there is a section where you do a study or a research. You take a group of students, teachers, parents, and community leaders, and you discuss certain topics related to the Tamil schools and all that. For example, like academic performance, cultural preservation, self-esteem, etc. There's all there. One thing I felt is that the community leaders tend to always politicize this matter. They use it for their own political journey, right? Political mileage. Whereas the truth on the ground is that Tamil schools are actually doing very well. And it's because of them that the perception of Tamil schools is that Tamil schools are bad. Tamil schools are poor. Students are not good, when that couldn't be further from the truth. In your experience, what do you think about Tamil school performance? And the role of politicians in representing their performance?
Politicians are a different breed.
Good answer.
Let us face that.
Okay.
They are all interested in their own future, their own political standing, whether they can get votes and survive, and things like that. And the Indian community would listen to their leaders at that time because they were poor Indians. Even in a village like in Penang, a temple head or no, a village headman, Natamai, have wielded a lot of power in the 1940s and 50s and until the 1960s. But things have changed. So Tamil school teachers in those days, when we are talking, when at the time when the book was analyzed, and I analyzed the group, there were a lot of also older teachers, retired, and when we talked to them, retired old teachers who had only had a Tamil education until about standard 6 or standard 8 and became teachers and whatnot, and things were different. I wouldn't say things were bad. They did their best to educate the children in the culture and things like that. Now, if you look at the present day teachers, Tamil school teachers, are a class by themselves.
A lot of them are even master's holders and all that. Yeah.
Masters, I know Tamil school teachers preparing for their PhD. I know. And a lot of teachers have got masters. And they teach very well. That is why you get a lot of Tamil school students now doing very well in science and mathematics and IT, science projects. They go internationally and compete and win prizes and come back. We have noticed that. I've always told these Indian guys, compile all those things. Let us show the world that Tamil schools can produce these kinds with proper guidance.
Yes.
That's, children can't do it by themselves.
They need the teachers.
They need
gurus,
the guidance of teachers. And basically, it is the teachers, in Tamil school teachers who are guiding them, not anyone else. Not an industry person comes in and says, let me help your children in these projects. It's school teachers.
Yeah.
And they're doing very well. I wouldn't say that teachers are to be blamed for the situation because education, half the time, it is parents. Indian parents from the lower socioeconomic status are busy working for survival. They don't have the time to concentrate on their children's education. Nowadays, they have enough money to take them for tuition and whatnot. By and large, most of them cannot afford it. That is why they keep their children in Tamil schools. Tamil schools are the neighborhood schools. And if you live around that area, you would just send your child there. And the cost of maintaining a child in a Tamil school is much cheaper. They don't take part in physical sports activities like what the normal primary schools and secondary schools do. Children don't need to wear spikes to run. Our fellows will run barefoot. So the expenses are limited. And the teachers don't ask you for a lot of funds. In a primary school, in a normal primary school, there's a lot of funds. The PIBG requests for funds. The school will request for funds. They'll organize a lot of projects for which they expect the children and their parents to contribute. But in a Tamil school, those sort of things are few and far in between. So,
in your experience, because in this book you also highlight the involvement of parents or the lack of involvement of parents. How has their attitude been in your experience when you were doing your research? How can you best sum it up?
You see, I still say they take a very. If I tell it to you in Tamil, you'll understand. Or in English, it just says, if he's hardworking, he can pass. அவன் கஷ்டப்பட்டு படிச்சானா அவன் பாஸ் பண்ணிடுவான். அவன் படிக்க மாட்டேங்கிறான். That's a very general statement, How can you make a statement like that to your child when you have to guide him how to?
Correct.
Did you look at his exercise books and say, hey, why is there so many red marks in your book? Have you done the corrections? Have you done the work? What have you done? Show me your books. Read for me this. They can't because their language, their level of education, if you look at it, even the parents at the group interviews, the parents' level of education is also, most of them primary or lower secondary, or even primary they would not have completed. They're all unskilled labor workers.
But is it cool? I mean, because I know several very successful elderly men who are engineers. They have set up their own business. They're doing very well. They also came from very humble beginnings. Parents
Yes.
who were very poor and all that. I remember this one man, I won't mention his name, but he told me, he said his father, he had five boys, five kids, I don't know boys, no, but five children. And he said every night the father would sit at the dinner table, open newspaper, and tell all the children to sit in front of him and do their work. He was a poor man. He was just a normal, humble beginning. Why do these parents have a sort of a lack of focus on the child's education? Is it that they just don't care, or is it that the idea of social mobility or how education can promote social mobility is not being sold to them?
No, they know, I think. They know, but they don't have the time. You see, if you want your children to sit around to study, you must have a little bit of basic education. You should have easily completed your Form 5 in order to be able to help them. You won't be able to help them. You sit down there and you feel you're wasting your time sitting with them because you don't know what they're doing, children. But what they should do is they should be able to instill in the children this habit of doing schoolwork every day. That is missing in most families. I'm not saying a lot of poor parents, a lot of successful Indians now have their beginnings in the estates. I know of a lot of people. I lived in PPN hostel, set up by the NUPW, by PP Narayanan group at that time. 3/4 of the students were all from the estates background. I was from Penang. I was an urbanite. They tell you stories of the background, their own struggle to come to reach this. Those are the few good ones. These students, you place them in any stream, they would be successful. If you take, for instance, if I can mention names, like Professor Marimutu, you put him in a Chinese school, he would have been successful. They are intelligent enough to do that. If you take like Telinathan, these are all Tamil school products, some of the people that I know at that time. You put them in, say, a Malay school, at that time, they would have topped everything and come up.
No, you're absolutely right. Because even at this event, when I was there, I remember they also invited a lot of senior scientists to come. A lot of them were from Tamil schools.
Tamil schools.
And they are doing amazing research and they are pushing the envelope.
Now, we switch from the primary schools. Primary schools are given. 60% of our children are there in primary schools. Let it be. What do we do in the secondary?
Yeah, and
I'll
get that, because in your book you talk about how the 1 year of Peralihan, and one very interesting concept that you have spoken about, which I didn't really think about, was that you said that how this Peralihan, this 1 year remove class, creates a different classes of students, which then promotes the superior. To bully, and for these students to be afraid of them, and all, it affects their self-esteem. Please talk more about that. That was very interesting.
It's
Superb.
Basically, remove classes are always considered outside the mainstream.
Correct.
Education.
These are the
They're
students who are
always
not
put in the last classes.
Yes.
Them in one corner there, remove, and they send the teachers who are about to retire, language teachers, and problematic teachers will be sent there and say, look after them, teach them Bahasa and the subjects. But what happens is the children also enjoy themselves. Most of the time, if you are left alone in the class, we are very happy.
Very happy.
We do buat kerja masing-masing.
Yeah, yes. I love that sentence.
That words.
Yeah.
And we as teachers have got that stock of words. Buat kerja masing-masing. Saya besok, saya ada mesyuarat. Saya sibuk. Saya pergi mesyuarat. Like that, a lot of things happen in remove classes. And also, when they move to Form 1, they are not adequately equipped to handle the language in Form 1. Because for a year, they have missed out on what is mathematics, science concept that they've later learned in Tamil, the mathematics concept they've learned in Tamil, the geography concepts that they've learned in Tamil. They are all they can learn history, they can learn English. They'll say Bahasa is very easy for me because at the conversational level they can handle everything, but they can't fight back. If there is a kind of a dispute or an argument, they can't, because they don't have the vocabulary.
Is that problem still existent today?
Oh yes. It's still there. That is coming from the Tamil school. There are Tamil school students who are very good at Bhasa. We must admit that because it's not a static thing, that they
Correct.
come there and everyone is stuck there. There are a lot of children who do very well. There is a bunch that does, but in our case, a majority of children coming from the state schools, not state anymore, coming from the primary schools, are hesitant to participate because they can't participate on an equal basis. Because they're always looked down upon by the students as well as the teachers. The teachers, I've mentioned how the teachers say these fellows are too naughty, they don't pay attention, they don't learn, I don't care for them. Whereas the other boys will say, oh, you Tamil school, the Indian students who come from the national medium or those days the English medium will look down upon these guys. Kotakatan.
You know,
he can't talk Malay, he can't talk English,
unfortunately, we Indians are very good at that.
Yeah. Name
Putting
calling.
down our own people. Yeah.
Name calling. We put attached names to people, students, and
Yeah.
they become very conscious of that.
Yeah.
ஐயோ எனக்கு ஃபைட் பேக் பண்ண முடியல. Only thing I do is I can feel like punching the fly. Punch.
Yeah.
More than that, I can't do anything. These are all what is happening in the environment. You see, I observed, for instance, when I was doing the research, during recess, mainstream canteen, Malays, Chinese, all be sitting there. Indians will be bunching out one group outside. Or if they have a table, all of them will sit down together and eat. You see, I asked the fellows, why don't you, அவனுக்கு accept பண்ண மாட்டேங்கிறானுங்க சார், அவனுக்கு விட மாட்டானுங்க சார் நம்மள.
This is very sad when I hear it.
This is those days lah. In the I did the work in 1990s, around that time. But now it might be different. Now it is, their Bahasa is weak. That's the most important thing. How do we turn it around?
So all this stems from the fact that they are not confident in their language skills in Bahasa and English. But so why is it then that the Tamil schools cannot ensure that their Bahasa and English is top notch before they go into secondary?
They are allotted only so many periods. The timetable takes in so many periods. And they can only allot so many. And the Tamil school teachers work very hard. They teach. But the children have no extra reading materials. Anyway, they don't have enough of supplementary exercises. But now in states like Penang and Selangor, I don't know about Selangor, but I know in Penang, for instance, there is a lot of help coming from the state.
Okay.
The state gives a lot of grants, and the state has set up within the EXCO, they've set up an education committee for Indian Tamil schools, a committee in charge of Tamil schools. The leader, who is the EXCO member, he appoints a lot of knowledgeable people inside there, and they get a lot of grants from the government, and that is being given out. And on their own, they have a lot of grants from the Hindu Endowment Board and things like that. They supply workbooks. That is very important, The children must have enough practice. That's the important thing, If you depend on the school textbook and go home and you don't do anything else, you are not aware of so many other things that are available around the school environment. You don't learn. But these kinds of workbooks teach you a lot of things. How to it's what they call practice makes perfect. Even in those days when we were in Form 5, we used to have the 5-year series. Remember the mathematics 5-year series will come. We will sit down and work it all out. And that's a practice.
Yeah.
And then we get used to it and we get confidence. In this case, they have nothing else. They go home, they're left alone in the house because the parents are busy working. I know not all parents are like that, but some parents take care of the children. But those children do well. I know of a Tamil school girl who the parent is just an ordinary worker in the council and whatnot, but she has done very well. She got all A's in her Standard 6 exam at those days. Then she went on to a good girls' school in Penang. She has been doing very well. I keep track of her. I say, what are you doing? How are you faring? She'll tell me, I'm okay. I'm interested in science, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. There are, when the parents are interested, the people, and some children are very intelligent. They go. We are talking about average and below average children.
No, I get that. But let's take a breather from this, because there's another interesting point that you brought up just now about how Indians, the students from the national education, put down the students from the Tamil education schools. You talk about in your book that there is an intra-racism that exists in our Indians, right? Whereby you talk about how the opportunities given to those from the manual class and non-manual class differs by 10 times.
Yeah.
Can you please elaborate on that?
It's not a new factor. You see, the manual class, you look at what is happening. If you're from the middle class or upper middle class, then you have had good exposure to good behavior. Your parents look after you well, all those things, right? And then so you come to school, you behave, you concentrate on education, and then you are looked after by the teachers. Also like these kinds of pupils. Okay. But if you are not interested in any subject and whatnot, and you are from the lower SES group, they just ignore you because it's difficult for them. How would a teacher look after 40 pupils, the same level of attention?
Correct.
You know? They would like to foster everyone up, but they can't. The classes are big. You can only tell them, come sit down. After some time, they said, let them be now. I've talked to them. They are not paying attention. They are not putting any effort. What do I do? Biar macam itu lah. You see how it is. That is how the attention span of the teachers, and also the teachers have some kind of, if the Tamil school pupils who come into secondary, they don't have enough role models.
Interesting.
That is very important. They don't have enough teachers, Indian teachers, to look after them, or for the children to look up to them. And say, yeah, this is a friend of mine. He's from my area. He has passed. He was in the estates, for instance. Now he's a teacher here. That gives a kind of a role model for you to identify. You see, in a family, it happens like that. If in the family, the first 2 or 3 children do well, the others have got, I must follow my brothers and my sisters. I must do well. Everyone comes up. And the relatives will say, they have been successful. You study. Come up. Let's do this. Let's do that. You understand how the whole thing has got this effect, multiplier effect like that. That it gets caught on that we must do well. And that is how now a lot of Indian families are like that. The elder brothers and sisters do well, the others follow through. It's easier. But in the poor families, the fellow says, you ask a Form 3 boy, why aren't you studying? What are you going to do? That fellow will turn around and tell you, but some daring boys will turn around and tell you, you know what they tell you? Adu oru vela thane. You understand? Yes. I was teaching in a secondary school and I would be furious. I'll say, if this were my son, I would have punched that fellow in his face. I would say that I can't do that here. Okay, now, I'll leave it alone. You want to be like that? Be. There's nothing I can do. Huh? They respond to you like that. You know? This is not everyone. You know, you get 1 or 2 cases that come up and say this.
But from the Tamil school, and then when they transfer to the secondary school, you do highlight the fact that, of course, at one part where they have severe lack of self-esteem.
Yeah.
Right? In your experience being a teacher, being an educator, do you see this lack of self-esteem continue on to their later parts of their life?
You see, the lack of I did a comparison when you look at the book. I did a comparison of self-esteem of Tamil school pupils and national school.
Yes.
National school Indians and the Tamil school self-esteem and concepts much more positive than this guy.
Correct. I was surprised by that finding.
You found that?
Yes.
I was surprised. I said, we always thought that these guys are all frightened, you know, but it is secondary school that influences them. They can't stand up and match with the Bahasa level.
Is it because that they are operating for the past 6 years in a group that is just them?
Yeah, that is part of the fact. The part of the fact is because they are isolated and they're in a mono-ethnic environment, their self-respect and self-esteem is higher because the teachers respect them, the teachers treat them well.
Yes.
When they come to a secondary school, they have to fight with non-Indians for positions in the class. And they also have to fight for attention from the teachers.
Yes.
If your language is not good enough, how do you communicate with the teacher? You can't communicate. And the teachers talk to you, you say, I don't know how to reply this. Okay, I go back. Sit down. What to do? I go tell my parents in the school, these fellows are bullying me. So, you can't fight back because these are all, there is a lot of discrimination, racism in schools. It is reported in a study in 2021. Remember the study by a group of people who did, what was it all about? They found out what is the level of discrimination in, that is, I referred to it in the epilogue.
Yeah.
If you look at the epilogue, it says, there he says 85% of Indian children report that they are being discriminated against by the school, that is by other pupils, as well as by teachers. Very clear. People are not accepting, the authorities are not accepting this. They think everything is hunky-dory and fine.
In your opinion, why do you think this is the case? Is it simply because the color of the skin? Because we are talking specifically in schools. We're talking specifically in schools, right? Is it because their lack of ability in language? Why is it that they are a target for racism?
I think it's a matter of conjecture for us now.
Yeah, it is.
We
It is
talked
of a
about
conjecture.
it
Yeah,
yesterday,
definitely.
but it may be true. It may not. There is a lot of favoritism, things taking place, and because they are Indians, we are a small minority. We tend to move back, not participate fully.
The
And
whole
because
inferiority
we are
complex.
not selected, come and you see. You look at the sports events. You look at how footballers in football, the football team of schools, basketball is all Chinese dominated. Distant sports, athletics is said. Indians are not given the opportunity to participate. They only choose the majority race to participate, to play. That fact is there evident. You can see it every time things take place. Only a few become very successful in terms of sports and athletics just because they are very good. Some children will succeed anywhere. They are very good, but the majority, they want to participate, they can't because they're not chosen to participate. That's an issue. That is why the students say that there is discrimination in against these races, against Indians.
Does this discrimination and this racism impact the performance of them in their later parts of their life, in your experience? In say, because you were also in a university and all that, do you see that impacting? How does that impact their whole
In the university, they are okay, I think. If it is a multiracial environment, they are okay. They don't perform outstandingly, but they plod through because we will discuss this later, how it happens.
Okay.
In the university, it's okay. They will pass. That much I know. But they are all the guys who come to the university are good
students. Yeah, you have to be. Yeah.
Otherwise, you would not have reached
University,
that level.
Yeah.
They're good students, and there is a lot of discrimination that takes place everywhere.
But you also mentioned this book about the dropouts.
Yeah.
You say we have high dropout rates and all. Why is it that they are dropping out? Is it because of this?
Dropping out basically because they are unable to follow the lessons in language. Language is the most important factor. Not only in Tamil schools, you will find out that we have found out that even in Chinese schools, dropout rate is high because of Bahasa. They can't compete. For them, it is okay. They come out, they have a lot of avenues to get employed.
Because the Chinese would employ them.
They start their own businesses.
Yeah.
They become a mechanic or they become a salesman. There are a lot of opportunities for them to get in, or they get in as technicians, things like that. Whereas for Indians, there are no opportunities.
So that's an interesting point, Doctor, because the way you put it is that the attitudes of the Chinese community creates a cushion for the landing when
Yeah.
they drop out.
Yeah.
So because I know that we Indians like to look at others. We like to say politicians are not doing, RMK 13 don't have anything for Indians, social, all that nonsense. But we are not doing enough. Are we providing a cushion for the students to land? Are we providing, as a community, second options for them?
No, opportunities are there, but students become very selective also. Students dropping out of school, you ask them to work in a restaurant, they won't go and work. They think it's below their dignity to go and work in a restaurant. You know that. And even if you go and work in a restaurant, you'll say, oh, this life is too difficult for me. I need to get out of this. I need something else. I can't stay long. Because I know students, a lot of students who come to work in restaurants and then drop out and go. They can't bear the pace of work. That is basically because at home too, boys are treated differently.
Yes, correct.
They are not.
But I want to go back to this because you also talked about, we just spoke about how the dropout rates are being caused by the fact that students are not able to cope with
that is one of the
language.
factors.
Yeah.
Cope with the lessons is one, and also because they have got other things to work on.
Okay.
They say the families can't afford to send them to secondary schools. They also say that the classes are not interesting enough. I've interviews, not I have interviewed, but someone else had interviewed them and put those findings, What do they say about dropping out of school? What are the reasons? And they mentioned this, they can't afford it. Secondary school books are more expensive. They can't afford to buy the books, even though they get school textbook aid. That is not enough. They need money for a lot of other things in secondary school. So the parents can't afford it. And if you're weak, you don't do well, you fail your Form 3 those days, you're out. But now there is no such
You go up to Form
selective
5,
processes to check you and make sure that you are capable of doing the language. Move up to secondary schools, upper secondary or not. There are different bars. Our examination system is very, very selective in that sense. And
But the idea of I think I want to also paint a good picture because I think Tamil schools are generally always painted in a bad picture, right? And when I went there and when I saw these kids at the program I just mentioned to you, Who Wants to Be a Scientist, I was thrown away by just how these kids all speak English.
Yeah.
All speak English, and they are very. Of course, you're talking about the cream of the cream, lah. Yeah. You're not talking about the average student, right? But in your experience, because you've been in this field for a long time, do you think that our perception of Tamil schools as a school that is inferior is the right one to have now?
Nowadays, I don't think we can compete with Bahasa, national language schools. National medium schools, we can compete. We are doing quite well. You can't compete with the Chinese medium primary schools, but with Bahasa, national medium schools, you can compete. And you have done well. You have done well in subjects like mathematics, science, English, Tamil. Oh, we have done well. And we are doing well. We are doing well in competitions.
But when we go to secondary school, do we lose out?
We are not given the opportunity. In secondary schools, that's a problem. And secondary schools have got a different attitude towards these sorts of. They are all interested in preparing you for the exams. And if you don't match up to that, they leave you alone. Get that idea? So
in the early part of in the mid part of the book where you do your research, you do your study questions and all that, and you do interview parents and all. And one interesting thing was the one aspect you were looking at is that the Tamil school's role, or at least its perceived role, as a preserver of culture.
Yeah.
When you ask the students, they quoted to you that Saraswati Puja and all that, which is not a cultural thing; it is a religious thing. Let's be fair. Parents had no idea.
Yeah.
In your book, they said very general things like good habits and all that kind of stuff, right?
I came up to the conclusion also, what they are saying is not true.
Not true. In your experience.
It's not a transmitter of culture at all, except the language.
So that means Tamil schools are not a preserver of culture. It's just a language that they communicate.
Only the language is being used, because if you're a preserver of your culture, if you're not a preserver, if you see schools as a preserving your culture, your content itself need not be, but your content must be based on those kinds of environments.
Correct.
But our content is based on common content syllabus, which is a Malaysian environment.
So that's
what
it.
culture are you doing?
Yeah.
We are just giving peripheral information, very superficial information about Deepavali, about
That's all.
Thaipusam, about this
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that and the other, without really telling us. Is it a lot of studies have said that in order for cultural consumption to reach a higher level, the education must also follow suit. Education must be the one that leads them to that level of cultural consciousness. So they say elementary education will only lead you to your popular culture.
One thing that is not in your book that I recently discovered was that when we look at the Orang Asli community, the Orang Asli students sometimes don't want to partake in education for one reason. One of the reasons is that they feel that they are not represented in what they are learning. And fair enough, when I was in school, I don't remember learning anything about the Orang Asli communities. Do you think this is also a contributing factor to why there is a dropout rate among Indians, because they are not represented enough in the education system in terms of what they learn?
But no, but I did look at that and say whether textbooks give the children enough exposure, role models in the textbooks. That is a piece of study. That's a specialized area you can do work on. But I looked at some of those things and I said, some of the books do that, give you a little bit of exposure. But now the exposure is more concentrated on the majority population.
Yeah, very
You
much.
see, there were schools that in some primary schools, if you bring in examples and say the Malay man is working as a petrol pump assistant, the parents will come and object. Why did you put my Malay as looking after a petrol pump? Aren't they doctors? Aren't they engineers? The awareness is different, with parents, because the textbooks have exposed them to those kinds of things, that Malays, Chinese, Indians are capable of these jobs. Otherwise it's a difficult question to answer, because the role of textbooks is important. They provide a lot of exposure and identity to children, but you can't do everyone justice in a multiracial society.
But shouldn't you focus on the truth? I mean,
All
that's
the
enough.
Textbooks is what I'm talking about.
No, because for example, now we see that of course they are changing the history of the country. It's slowly being augmented. Parameswara's role and all these things are happening. I remember I interviewed Mr. Udaya Shankar, who's an author, who actually said that he opposed the idea that the word Tuhan in textbook for Muslims is a capital T, but for other religions is a lowercase t. These are systemic, subtle, powerful ways of creating different classes in society.
Classes, definitely.
So racism is already in our education then.
Yeah, it is. I'm not saying it isn't. That's what I said. In a multiracial society, the majority race controls everything. You textbook writers community in the ministry wouldn't have enough representations of non-Malays in it. How would we get Chinese or Indian or other things inside the textbooks if you don't have representatives sitting there? This has been a question that has been raised by many people. Yeah, you can't. It's basically a question of majority race.
Okay,
running
fair
the
enough.
show.
Now, let's look at the answers. In your book, you end with your recommendations. What recommendations would you put forth?
I would put forward my recommendations at that time were we'll have to revamp the system of education in the country in terms of Bahasa Malaysia teaching. We can't teach Bahasa Malaysia to a multiracial group as if it is a first language for all of them. It isn't a first language for half the population at that time. So there are approaches to teach second language, Bahasa, or even in English as a second language. We must adopt new, different methods of teaching language. And I would prefer that in the remove class, you bring in the standard 6 mathematics and science books in there for 2 semesters, take them through those things. They would have learned these concepts in their standard 6 in Tamil. So they come to remove, they are exposed to the same content in Bahasa for 2 terms, and then stop it at 2 terms, and third term bring in the Form 1 textbooks, so that when they move to Form 1, they have some exposure to what is expected. You know that or not? You make them familiarize them with that.
Correct.
That is one of the approaches you could do, and I've suggested some teaching methods which they could. First, there are dual language methods. There are a lot of different methods you can do. But if there are enough language teachers, and also you must have Indian teachers teaching remove class, because it gives them a sense of identity with it. The children are familiar with them. They can, your own race, you are more familiar and confident in dealing with it.
But is that a case of 2 steps forward and 3 steps backward kind of thing?
Only in the remove class, I'm asking.
Because then, what do we do with teachers who practice racist ways in their everyday?
I had suggested that every teacher should undergo a course in multiracial relations, multiracial education.
Why
at
do you
the teacher training levels?
No, as an educator, why do you think that after so many years of independence, we are still grappling with this issue of race relations that you have suggested, Doctor, that we have to send our teachers to multiracial classes?
Not multiracial, they must be made aware of some of these things, because I think human beings being human beings, we only look after our own race. Isn't it? It's a fact.
Yeah, it is.
So
yes.
that gets exposed in our system. Our multiracial system exposes it very clearly that we look after ourselves.
In your experience, have you seen firsthand teachers being racist?
I've heard about it with these sort of things in pupils, because I was teaching in schools for a long time, for about 15 years. But I've been teaching in the East Coast where all were Malay students. They were very good. And the Malay teachers, some of the Malay students I taught those days, still remember us. They call us back for meetings, for celebrations. We go. That's one of the best things you can. I think about teaching. That group of children I taught in the rural areas of Terengganu still remember all the teachers, and they call us back. But that sort of a thing doesn't happen now, because the politics of the system has been so skewed towards religion and race and whatnot that it gets imbibed in the children as well. That's one of the realities we'll have to face in a multiracial society. What can we do? We shout among ourselves or talk among ourselves, but at the policy level, people, we are not there to alter give suggestions even.
That's why I'm telling you, if you read this book, you'll get angry. I got angry multiple times reading this book. But that's an interesting point, because are we making loud enough noise, especially the parents group, these stakeholders? Shouldn't they be louder in opposing these things?
But people here, the non-Malays in this country, this is a general statement I make, and I've noticed that generally the non-Malays feel unheard. That is the best description I can give. You can say what you want, but no one listens. If at all it's offensive, they'll arrest you.
You'll be in SOSMA ISA or something. Yeah.
You see, if it touches on sensitive issues, you get arrested.
Yeah.
But these issues are not sensitive. These issues are saying this is how nation building process should be. We must look at a multiracial society and accommodate it. But if you don't, you say no, this is how you should. This is the only way you can go about it. You suggested the history textbooks. I will give you a textbook, research I did on history, and you will see what are the things that have gone
Missing.
wayward.
Wayward, okay.
Instead of being, history is something which you have to look at the facts and write. People make very bizarre statements about Malaysian history that makes us laugh, and we say, we can't do anything. How do we change these things? No one listens to us. Everyone believes that's true. What is being said is true. Otherwise, then there'll be, if this were in the West, then there'll be outrage, How can you say this? What is your evidence like? Take him out of the system. Don't give them the opportunity to say these sorts of things. But in this country, nothing happens like that.
Oppression is systemic, is what you're saying.
Systemic problems we have a lot.
Now, as an educator, we've in I think recent years we've had the issue of our PISA scores is one. I interviewed someone recently by the name of Samuel Isaiah, who is exec director of Pemimpin, and he was telling me that he works a lot with schools, and he said that 1 in 4 students cannot comprehend Malay as well as English. It's not just English, Malay as well. Why is that happening, sir?
That's basically a problem of language teachers being not effective enough. What else can we say? I cannot say things like, oh, this group of teachers are not bad, but they will say they're doing their work. The children are not applying themselves to hard work. It's not that we are getting butagaji. That's a system. They will answer you like that. The children are not listening. We are teaching them every day. They're not doing their homework properly. They don't attend to these facts. They are not interested in talking. They're not mixing. These are very difficult questions to answer.
In a public sphere. Maybe later, let's go for lunch again. Tell me nicely.
There must come a time when this sort of unsavory things must be exposed, must be said, but exposed in a pleasant way.
No, of course, I agree with that.
What we are doing now, we're just saying these problems exist, but how do we do it? How do we correct it?
Now, I want to bring it back to the book because I think this is a very important question. If schools are not doing their job, if Tamil schools are not doing their job as preservers of culture, right? If students who attend Tamil schools suffer or are left at a disadvantage when they enter secondary school, if Tamil schools are leading to dropouts because of the lack of proficiency in language that it creates.
The dropout among Indians is very high.
Very high. It's there in the book, right? It's facts. These are facts. Then should we have Tamil schools?
I don't think the Indian crowd will agree with what we say.
No, but
they would want, it's a question. If you make such kind of drastic changes in education, you will have to have the entire Indian population behind your back.
Correct.
And saying, look, okay, we are with you.
But doctor,
are they with us?
Is conformity? Are we prioritizing conformity instead of prioritizing our children's future? They need to compete, doctor.
They need to know the mother tongue.
No, that's fine.
One thing.
That's fine.
They need to know the mother tongue. They need to know our culture. That is important for a lot of Indians, for a lot of Muslims, a lot of Chinese. It's important. We need to know our culture. But schools must be able to prepare us for in primary level. If you say Tamil schools are bad, how is it that now you say Tamil schools present students who can compete internationally?
No, I agree with that.
You see?
But again, like what we discussed, that is the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
And in every school you have a bell-shaped curve.
If you stop our argument at that point and say, what do we do next?
So this is my suggestion, and I got this from reading your book. I think your book reveals a very powerful truth, especially in the section where you talk about community leaders, that Tamil schools are politicized.
Yeah.
Heavily, right? That's number one. Number two is, if from the start of the book, the focus was always preserving Tamil language, right? Always that. You say very well, in the early days, because of a transient nature of our people, they educated them in Tamil so that they can reintegrate back in society in India.
Reasons,
fantastic. But after that now, post-independence, we are still politicizing Tamil. Tamil is a weapon now. It's not a language, it's a weapon for especially for our leaders. The idea here, should we focus instead on bettering the education that our kids receive, as opposed to always talking about Tamil?
Okay. Okay, if I look at education per se, primary education is in Tamil, that you can't fault it in any way. They're doing well. They're doing well. The problem lies in the secondary education.
Correct. Yeah.
What do we do there?
My thing starts from the primary.
Okay, if you start from the primary, the only thing you can do at the primary level is to increase the number of subjects that is taught in Bahasa. You see? But at the moment, that position cannot be changed because the Ministry of Education decides how many subjects are there in the primary school, what is the time allocation for them and whatnot. And you can't do anything about that. You have to follow that. But what I think is secondary level is where we need to concentrate. We need to concentrate on. I think if you are looking at the secondary level, could we, for instance, I am more interested in the best and brightest of the Indian children from Tamil schools. They are the ones who have been very successful, and they are the ones who are lost in the secondary.
Even the brightest.
Yes. We are losing a lot of them. We are losing close to 25% of dropouts in the system. That includes everyone, either from Malay medium or Tamil medium. So what I would suggest is we do what has happened with our Malay brothers. Have national schools which will be known as secondary priority schools for Indians. All we need to do is say we have in about 8 areas in the country where there is a sizable Indian population and Tamil schools. We select the best and brightest of these children, put them there. That is what they did for Malay children in the Mara schools and science schools and special residential schools. And the expansion of the community's socioeconomic status and the level of the children's education improved tremendously. You see that or not? All of them sprung up at that level because there was special attention focused on them. The government must recognize the Indian community as a marginalized community and say these are the steps we have to take. Give them these 8 schools which will take in Tamil children, but will use the national language as a medium of it. We can't change the policies, but we'll have to see how the policies can to be implemented.
So just to get this clear, so
eight primary secondary schools,
secondary schools which focus on which cater for the brightest minds in the Indian students from
and
primary.
Best students, take them there.
Only Indian, or are you talking about multiracial?
Indian students.
Then that doesn't solve the problem, doctor.
No,
Again, they will still not be able to compete.
You can always but at that level you're intensifying teaching of Bahasa and Tamil language and all that.
That's why my thing is, my biggest problem with your book, not biggest problem, but the biggest problem that it made me understanding it's still now even, is that the self-esteem. I cannot swallow the fact that Indian kids are being bullied, Indian kids are being marginalized in school because of their lack of language and their lack of, I don't think language, I think the confidence in mingling with you because you're a different skin color.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So the suggestion you're doing is just continuing that problem, doctor. It's not solving that problem.
I don't know whether it's continuing the problem, solving it or...
Because the key here is that I must have the confidence as an Indian to compete with a Chinese person, or to even mingle with them, beginning with the Malay. Because that will carry on to their work. They always go to work with an inferiority complex.
How do we do it?
English, doctor. From primary school, there must be after school sessions, for example, incorporating, say, like Toastmasters, for example, into education. This must be done at every school level.
Primary school level?
Primary school. They must stand in front and talk, mingle with all these different color. I mean, they must, and the problem here is all the activists and the leaders that we have in our community always deal with problems. Number one, they only speak in Tamil. Number two is they only deal with problems relating to India. They never talk about macro problems. So the students seeing this get led into the fact that, okay, for me, I'm just the Indian issue. I'm not.
Okay.
I can't mingle with. You, doctor, have benefited from mingling with Chinese, with Malays. You are confident. These students must be done that so that when they go to secondary, problem solved. I can mingle because I'm confident. I can speak English better than you.
Would that mean that the solution to that problem would be uh, a much more drastic solution? I would say make Tamil language compulsory in primary schools
Okay.
for all Indians and move them all there.
That'll be good. Yeah, POL. Yeah, people. Yeah, I agree with that.
I say
agree
do
with that.
away with POL, get them at Malay schools, and English and Tamil. At least Tamil be compulsory for every Indian.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That is what's happening in Singapore, for instance. Even though they had separate Tamil schools and whatnot, but ultimately the population moved into national schools, English schools, and they are doing very well. I would come to the Singapore problem after. Not the problem. Singapore solution of what they did after.
Yeah.
That's how. If you are interested, if you are really interested in this kind of thing, and say, how do we increase their interaction with
Yes.
non-Indian students or whatnot, that is the only solution. I see, nothing else. But will the Indian community agree?
But just one last question on this then. Why is it, do you think that in your finding, you found that students who are from mainstream education, the national education system, the Indians, have a lower self-perception than students from Tamil school?
Not lower. What I'm saying is comparatively, because they are in a multiracial situation, they understand the problems. Whereas from the Tamil schools, they're all together. There is a theory called the isolation, the psychic, their psychic aspect is not affected. So they, in the Tamil schools, they are with their own race. So they become braver. They become more confident. But when you move to the secondary schools where they become very jittery about interacting with non-Malay, if you put me in a Malay environment, I wouldn't be able to be successful if I'm coming from a Tamil medium schools. Let me tell you my own experience.
Please, doctor, please.
My entire education, primary, secondary, has been in English, in secondary, in a English environment in Penang, which is multiracial, and it was okay. But the very first day I went to an English school, I didn't know anything English. And the teacher asked me a question, I cried. What is he asking? But slowly, it was the teachers who helped you along, Don't cry, let us take you through this. You learn the alphabets first, you do this. And there were Chinese teachers in Standard 1 when we were in that school in Penang. And we caught up. Maybe you think these are intelligent children, they can catch up, but we caught up. But what I'm trying to say is when I switched over to Form 1, the level of English was very, very different. The level of English in Standard 6 was very different from the level of even the textbooks in Form 1, very different. I didn't understand what is geometry, all were new topics to me. Science, I didn't know what.
By the way, guys, I just want to say this. It's just to add a bit of color to what Doctor is saying. If you read this book, the language is a bit high. I mean, I had to look at Google words as I was reading. So the man has definitely made up for that.
No. But this is academic. That's what we are trained to think.
Fair enough. But some of the words, I was like, what is this? I've never heard this word before.
No, not that difficult.
But
I've tried to be SS.
But doctor, just in one thing, I think we can end this here. Why did you write this book, doctor?
No, it is basically some of these reasons you're saying, because I had always felt that the Tamil schools were not good enough. There must be some change. So let me study that and then recommend the changes. Our people are saying that Tamil schools are hopeless, they're poor man's school and things like that. Let us see what is wrong with them and let us make the recommendations. That is the basic purpose. And also I needed a topic for a PhD.
How honest.
And you see, I'm
Nothing
from
too altruistic. Just I needed a topic.
No. Yeah, I needed it, and I thought this is an interesting topic. This is a problem that has been vexing me for a long time.
Yeah.
Teaching in schools, I see children in Form 1. I started at a secondary school all my life, and I see children coming from primary into secondary. They were entirely different, and I used to be very upset and angry with the way Indian children were. And short of hitting them, I would be irritated, I said, I can't do that. But I had a bad temper at home in school. So, but I still said, look, I can't touch them, but let's talk to them. But, at some point, some of the students I taught have done very well. They've done very well. And they still come back and see me, we meet. They're good students.
No,
So that was the basic issue. I wanted to see how we can make suggestions for this.
No, but even when I'm talking to you, I'm reminded of my old teachers. I remember one man, I don't know whether he's still alive. His name is Chatu Nair. You remember in Kluang? And he used to be a strict man. Oh my, he's an ad maths teacher.
Yeah, some of
I
these
tell
people
you.
are very good teachers.
Very good. But Indian teachers always had this thing. They were always very strict, but they're good teachers.
I've told, as a teacher trainer, I've been a teacher trainer for about more than half my life. I've told teachers must be colorblind.
Yes.
That's the most important aspect. If you want to be a teacher, you have to be colorblind and say, you're teaching children in there. You're not teaching Malay children, Chinese children, or Indian children. You're just teaching children and concentrate on everyone.
No, I've always said this. I think teachers are the most important people
very
in our
important,
country.
and they have to be colorblind.
Yeah.
I don't like the Indians. I don't like the Chinese. Nothing. You teach them as you are, but they're all there to learn from you.
Yeah.
That's how I've always imparted my knowledge to children in schools. I've never discriminated. This is the Chinese child, this is the Indian child. But if you want to do that, you take them separately and warn them. You're not good. If you're doing this, I will do this in your leaving certificate. I'll not give you a recommendation. I've threatened boys like that, Indian boys. If you behave
My
like
goodness,
this,
doctor.
I will do this now.
Thank God I wasn't your student. I think you would have killed me, I think. But, thank you.
No. But I've always been a good teacher.
Just sometimes you have to.
You have
iron
to
fist.
put your foot down.
Have to. You come from that old school, which I love. I love teachers like you. I must say, all my favorite teachers were all very, very strict.
I have some solutions which I'll put across to you. Put it to the Indian crowd. I say, in Singapore, the same problem existed, where Singapore Indians were not good in maths, in science, and English, those sorts of things. And they were also from working class children. What to do? So the cabinet of Indian MPs, not the cabinet, the Indian MPs instructed the Indian committee leaders to sit down and study, bring out an action plan. In 1990, they sat down and decided that they would form an association called Singapore Indian Development Association, called SINDA.
Is it still there now?
It's still there. And I've read their working paper and whatnot. I've seen that. And they submitted to the cabinet, Singapore cabinet. There were two Indians at that time. I think it was Professor Jayakumar and Dhanabalan, those two, and a few other MPs like Chandragadas and all that. I've read their names. I don't know them personally. I've read about them. All of them sat down together and said, how do we implement this program which the community has brought up, the Singapore Indian Development Association, and the Singapore government gave them a charity status and said no taxes, no tax. And they were given a tax exemption privilege that they can collect money and issue tax exempted receipts so that a lot of people like to do that,
Yeah.
Whether it's a tax exemption for me to contribute. And then they made sure that the majority of Indian workers in Singapore, the labor force, and contributed to the Central Provident Fund $2 a month, contribute towards a fund. The leadership will go on and source funds from the other captains of industry and things like that. But the people contribute $2, workers, and they collected close to about 30 to 50 million Singapore dollars in 5 or 6 years. And still they use that funds, and that still the contribution goes on, I think, $2. And they have done fantastically well in terms of giving children special classes in mathematics, in science, in English. They use, Singapore is such a small country, they can do all those things. But we can replicate that and make sure that this happens in all our major towns and cities.
Sinda is amazing.
That is important thing. And all academics, the people who sat on the committee were big shots, Singapore leaders in industry, Indians, and school headmasters all sat down together and drafted this fantastic agreement. And it's very well implemented in Singapore. And you get now Singapore Indians migrating out of Singapore.
Yeah.
They have got the qualifications and they've got the confidence. They do those things. That is one thing. The other thing is I'm always I've talked about this in a few places. Our university, whoever survived the Tamil school system and Malay system and come out to enter university, we don't seem to have enough students in some of the courses. If you look at AIMS is basically set up by MIC. It is run by a body of MIC stalwarts and academics. And why aren't they recruiting enough Indian students to fill up some of these places? We see more non-Indians in some of the programs and courses than Indians. There are enough places. I'm not racist in this issue. There are enough places for Malay students to go in, enough places for Chinese students privately to get in. We are talking about Indians being, even in MU now, to get into the medical faculty, they've justified a system which says you come through the unit PUSAT UPU, you pay $15,000. If you come back to another stream, you pay $500,000. Can we afford things like that? I see my alma mater doing it and I'm saying, what the hell is this? How do they justify these things? They can easily close the university as a public university and start it as a private university. But here, what I think is MIED should set up special matriculation classes for Indian students who are average and above average. Put them there. Give them a 1-year training in the courses that they would want to get into the universities. Put them, then send them in. That is how the Malay system is working. They bypassed HSC for a long time, STPM for a long time, and brought them through, average students, brought them through matriculation. Now only that they are still resisting opening it up for non-Malays. We'll have to fight to get in. We can do the same thing. We are not barring anyone. We're saying, let us help the Indians this way. Why can't we do that? Medical faculty, when the convocation lists come out and I see, my God, this looks like a Chinese university.
And you say you're not racist, doctor.
I'm not racist, but this troubles me a lot. This is supposed to be hard-earned Indian money
and taxpayer money.
And even now, if you go around, the Indian entrepreneurs will definitely support things like that. Why don't we do that? You put in a lot of non-Indian students and give them free opportunities. You are a free student. You can, if you have 10 days, you can join AIMS to, matriculation classes. You free, but you must get enrolled in our courses. You charge them there. Take the money and subsidize our guys. That is my thinking. That's my thinking. You must play a more proactive role in helping Indians get into.
Yeah, so I mean, thank you, doctor. I mean, I guys, I mean, this book was fantastic, lah. It's the most invigorating book. I think
Some people have called it a landmark study for Indians. No one else has done anything like this
Correct.
up to now. But a lot of people have taken bits and pieces of Indian issues and examined school issues and examined. I'm not saying completely left alone. They do that. A lot of little papers have come out. Research
but
papers.
journal papers and as opposed to a book published is different because the book has more impact. Yeah.
That is comprehensive like this.
So, guys, this is the book Education of Ethnic Minorities: A Case of Indians in Malaysia. Now, I just want to say this
Every
as
Tamil
what.
school must have it. Every Indian leader must have it.
Yes, I was just about to say that. I think
Yeah.
every person who's interested to get into the fight for Indian issues or champion Indian causes must first read this book or books like this. There's also other books as well, but definitely this book must be among your repertoire because it's a statistical research without emotion, without any biasness on the issue of vernacular education. Is it good? Is it bad? I think we are divided on that, as you can see in this interview. But nonetheless, I do respect Dr. Santhiram a lot for coming up with this. And there's a lot of facts in it that we can really remove the clouds from our discussion and really have a proper discussion, proper understanding of the entire subject. Thank you again, Doctor, for coming on the podcast and for your solutions, for your recommendations. He has a list of recommendations at the end of the book. Please check that out. There's a lot of statistics here, studies here that will really open your eyes. Simple things that were not spoken about. For example, the attitude of parents in the education of their children. That has never been spoken about. I myself have heard this from Tamil school teachers themselves, but it's never been spoken. This is the first time I read it in a book. So thank you, Doctor. Congratulations. Guys, the link will be in the description. It's Education for Ethnic Minorities, the Case of Indians in Malaysia. Please get it from Gerak Budaya. Again, thank you guys at Gerak Budaya for organizing this interview. And till next time, Doctor, again, I hope you come back again. Please come back multiple. There's always a seat for you,
Thank you
in the podcast.
Vinod. Thank you, Vinod.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, that was Dr. Santhiram. Again, get the book. It'll be in the description. And educate yourself on the real matters, the real issues challenging vernacular education. We'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.